Cast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi guys, we're just about to get started, just about 20 more seconds. Okay, hey everyone. If I could just get a quick hand raise for just to get the audio check and make sure we're all good. Can anyone? Great, perfect. And everyone can see my screen, I'm assuming, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to the webinar, B2B e-commerce adoption, getting buyers to place orders online. My name is Mandy, and I am Director of Marketing at Handshake, and because my career has been in marketing, I'm pretty excited to be here with you guys today to talk about adoption, which a lot of this topic is actually about marketing. Adoption at the end of the day is getting people to do things you want them to do, and that's kind of the premise of marketing. So we'll be talking all about that today. This is one of my favorite webinars we do at Handshake. We always get a lot of interest in this topic, and after doing this long enough, I know it's for a few different reasons. So typically for people who already have an online ordering portal in place, which I know is some of you guys, you probably want to drive more usage of your current site. And I know that for sure this is a big challenge across the board because a lot of people who come to Handshake looking to upgrade their ordering portal are basically doing that because no one's using it. So on the other side, I also encounter a fair number of people, who have fear if they haven't yet implemented online ordering, that maybe their buyers are not going to be using the portal. And I understand this as well because, we all know that a lot of buyers in B2B are not exactly savants when it comes to using technology. And it's why learning a lot of these tactics that we're going to cover are really important today, just so you can make sure that when you launch your portal the first time, you can get that right going out of the bat. So on that note, I'd love to launch a quick poll here just to kind of get a sense for the audience today. You'll see that pop up right now. You can just take that for me. Just want to kind of get an understanding if you actually have online ordering in place and looking to really drive more usage of your portal, or if it's the case that you are kind of thinking some of these things through on the front end, both of which are totally going to be addressed today. Let's give a few more seconds here. Drive up our percentage voted to a little bit over. Let's get to 80%. Make me happy, please. Oh, wow, that plea really worked. I should do that more often. Thanks. Cool. So it looks like we're about 75-25. So a lot of you guys have portals in place, which is great. I hope I can hear a little bit more about that. So let's close the poll. So on that note, I'd love to see, for those of you guys who do have something in place, what are some of the challenges you might be facing in terms of adoption? So why do you think people aren't using your portal? Just type that right into the question box. It'd be helpful for me to get some info on that just so I can make sure to address some of those things today. So basically the question is, if you have a portal in place and you'd like to drive more adoption, why would buyers potentially not be using your portal currently? Anyone? Got it. So I'm seeing some people here talking about, got it, this is very common. So, older customers that might be used to calling your sales team. So that is very common. We'll talk about those people. Some people haven't launched yet. Some people haven't actually done marketing to really drive awareness of the portal. And of course, that's a really important foundation that needs to happen. Customers set in their ways, totally. Cool. Got it. I see something here about not wanting to double enter orders, which might be an issue with the portal itself. Maybe that causes some kind of manual steps. People who don't have internet. Wow, we're getting a lot of issues here. I like it. Cool. So this is helpful. We'll definitely be covering a lot of this today. I just wanted to get a little bit of context on where you guys are coming from. So let's get started because we have a lot to cover. In terms of the housekeeping things before we go forward, please make sure if you do have anything that comes up during the webinar in terms of a question, I'm trying my best to save about 10 minutes at the end for Q&A. So make sure to just type those into the questions box as you guys have been doing, which I really appreciate. And it'll make sure we expedite that section when we get there. Okay, so what are we going to cover today? So we'll talk about why adoption matters. I think you guys know that because a lot of you, you're here today for that reason, but we'll quickly go over it. We'll talk about the common adoption rate calculation that makes sense for you to use. There are different ways you can calculate adoption, and I'm going to suggest one for you. We'll talk a little bit about kind of adoption as a whole, and what does this look like in B2B e-commerce versus more generally, and kind of where are your buyers coming from, what kind of mentality. We'll talk about the gold standard buyer experience, which is really important. It's kind of like, what you should really be aiming for in your B2B buyer experience. These things really matter above all else because if you don't get them right, no matter what you do in terms of the tactical elements, it's really not going to matter. Then we'll talk about the actual launch tactics. So we'll suggest some things and specific email types that you can send to your buyers. We'll talk about driving ongoing usage and then some next steps before we get to Q&A. So why is adoption important? There's a few reasons. So first of all, this concept of omnichannel, for anyone who's been on a webinar with Handshake, we definitely talk about omnichannel often. It would be awesome if I could just cold call one of you right now to give me the answer, but so omnichannel refers to all the different sales channels that you're selling through. So whether that's in person with your sales reps, or through inside sales, or online through a portal or an app. It's really important that you actually give your customers multiple options because that drives up the value of your customers. There's a lot of really interesting data from Forrester around this point. One of the recent studies states that 60% of companies that were surveyed say that customers spend more when they touch multiple channels of the business. Another really interesting fact from one of these Forrester reports recently, which I loved, was kind of on this concept of migrated customers. So customers that have been placing orders with you, with your reps in person over the years, or manually with your sales team, or your inside sales team in your back office over the years. Once they migrate online, a lot of companies are finding that even in the case that these customers have been migrated online, they are also spending more in those legacy in-person sales rep channels as well. So this kind of just shows that pushing for more adoption in your online channel is a really important effort to drive up overall customer value. This is not going to be surprising, but of course it drives more revenue. So just a few quick things on this. The more you can get people to use your online portal, the more opportunity you have for greater product discoverability. And then of course, expanded reach as well. So online ordering definitely gives you that chance to find or to service those remotely located or smaller customers that might not get frequent visits from your reps. And of course, that 24/7 access. So your customers don't need to wait on your business hours. They are just able to kind of place orders when they want to, self-service. So the final thing here I'll say, and why adoption is so important right now specifically, is that this is still kind of that important critical moment where a lot of people have switched over in manufacturing and distribution to offering online ordering portals, but there's still kind of that wave, as we see, there's 25% of our people on the webinar today don't have anything in place. So not to capitalize on you guys, but there is this opportunity right now to steal business from competitors who have not provided that modern buyer experience. And it's also really important to get your buyers in the door to provide them with a compelling user experience that hooks them in, so they prefer to order from you than your competitors that might still be coming online. So let's quickly touch on adoption rate. So there's a few different ways, you can track adoption rate, and this really depends on the needs of your business, and this will probably become clear as we talk about it. But the rate that I like to use is the total number of customers that are placing regular orders on your portal over the total number of customers that have been invited to your portal. Because this is kind of a good proxy that factors in both how well you've done getting your buyers excited about online ordering, and then also how much the buyer experience you have provided them is driving repeat behavior. So obviously those two elements map to each of the kind of the equation here. So just to keep in mind, you have to take your specific business needs into account here. So if 10% of your customers represent 90% of your revenue, you might want to have some kind of weighting in this algorithm where obviously those customers and the adoption around those customers is much more critical for your business. So on the overview front, so what is B2B e-commerce adoption at a very high level? So in general, software adoption is about, conversion of, from one system to another. And when it comes to online ordering in B2B, typically we're talking about your buyer coming from one of two places. So either they are coming from a system that is very manual, where your customers might be submitting orders over the phone, fax, emailing you, spreadsheets, whatever you might be doing that is not through an online portal. So they're either coming from that very manual place, or they're coming from some kind of legacy system that you have in place. Early on when we first launched our portal, this was a little bit less common, and now actually we receive a lot of requests from people trying to switch from existing portals that just aren't cutting it, typically because they have a very outdated user experience or they're not strong on the mobile front. So either way, this is a case where you kind of train your buyers to use a current solution, or hopefully get them to use a current solution that you have in place, and you're moving them off to a new one. So regardless of the scenario you might be in, the same principles are going to apply when you're trying to drive adoption of a new portal. So this is obviously things like notifying your buyers of the change and making sure that they know what's in it for them, potentially giving them an incentive. We'll get into more on this in a little bit. So the other thing to keep in mind are the buyers that you're facing. And, we saw this, I definitely saw this echoed in some of the comments today when I just asked about what are some of the issues that you're seeing with adoption. So there are a few different types of buyers that we see in manufacturing and distribution. One is the creature of habit, and the other is the bleeding edge buyer. So the creature of habit is one that a lot of you guys are mentioning in the comments, and honestly, I hear about it all the time. It's that person who has been ordering from you for the same way for years, and they've gotten used to your process, whatever it is, even if it's borderline torture, they're going to do it because they're used to it. And the idea of having to switch over is an interruption of the status quo, and they don't want to deal with it. So in order to rope those people in, you really have to provide a user experience that's incredibly straightforward and a no-brainer, so that when the first time they encounter it, they will want to actually continue to use it. So the second is the bleeding edge buyer, and this is kind of your more forward-thinking buyer. It's not always a young buyer. I mean, it might just be someone who's really comfortable with tech or has kind of seen the other side, where they might be using your competitors' ordering portals and kind of asking you for the same. We get a lot of people who tell us that a lot of their customers have been saying, when are you gonna implement a B2B, because they're just getting used to it in the market. So that's kind of the bleeding edge buyer. And that buyer is a little bit pickier. They know what's out there, and the user experience is also incredibly important for them because, as they have been using your competitors' buying process, they might, you just need to rope them in with a better user experience to potentially win business in the same products or product categories. So I think this point got across that at the end of the day, the user experience that you provide your buyers is really the number one most important thing that's going to drive the adoption of your portal. And if you don't have this down, you can pretty much forget about realizing any benefits of online ordering. So we're going to talk quickly about the 5 components of this gold standard buyer experience. And the first one is the most important, it's a simple user experience. So there's a few things that really govern a simple user experience in the B2B buying process. And the first is really just simplicity and utility. So this is things like, can your buyers easily figure out how to use your portal? Is it the case that the actions that they take result in the confirmations they expect? If they add 20 items to the cart, does that functionality work? Is the pricing what they would expect given their pricing tier? Can they see a running total of the items that they have in their cart? So ideally, your portal should be something intuitive enough for your buyers to use without even being trained. So the last point here that I just kind of brought up a list on is really just about the basic functionality that has to be working perfectly to ensure that people will actually come back to use your portal again and again. So it's things like, can they browse the catalog by product category if you're selling a single line, or maybe by manufacturer if you're a distributor repping multiple lines? How about search? Can they search by SKU? Can they search by product attribute? Is it a sophisticated faceted search that allows you to actually tag your products with custom tags? So how is that search experience? So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go into all of them, but you're going to get the point here that the thing needs to work and the basic features need to be in place, or no one's going to want to use it. The next thing on the gold standard, number 2, is really important, especially because we've already talked about this value of the omni-channel customer, and one of those channels is often mobile. So you really have to provide your buyers the ability to choose from multiple channels and multiple devices. So it's really not enough to give web access anymore, because as we know, everyone's using their phone for everything now. So just want to touch on this because this is an important distinction when you're thinking about mobile ordering for your customers, and this is something that can really also impact adoption. This is the difference between native mobile and mobile optimized websites for ordering. So those of you guys who attend webinars at Handshake probably know what native mobile is, but I'm going to repeat it for some of you who are new. Native mobile apps are ones that are installed from the App Store or from an app store. You download it onto your phone, and oftentimes it works offline, and it utilizes and optimizes around the hardware of your phone itself and the operating system of the phone itself. So it allows you to, for example, like in the Handshake app, we have a native mobile app. It allows the buyer to use their camera on the phone for a barcode scanner, for example. It's a much more snappy, seamless experience. And of course, that offline functionality is really important, particularly in the ordering workflows of B2B buyers. So that, of course, contrasts with the other kind of the flip side, which a lot of people who are trying to provide a mobile experience to their buyers are using now, which is web optimized mobile. Sorry, why do I keep saying web optimized mobile? Web's probably in the brain for some reason. Mobile optimized websites. So this is something like, let's say you're using some kind of ERP extension as an online ordering portal, and your buyers have to go to the website of that portal on their phone. Typically, that's a very subpar user experience. We get a lot of complaints about that particular user experience, just because it's slow, it's subject to internet connectivity, it's not optimized around the phone. So these are things that are really important to think about and can have a huge impact on adoption. Number 3 is about product and order info, and I'm just going to highlight a few of the most important ones for you that can really impact adoption. So one of them is accuracy. So product info, especially pricing, it really has to be 100% accurate on your portal all the time if you want your buyers to come back. So think about it. If you have a gold customer, for example, who is expecting certain pricing on your portal and it's not there, they'll probably want to call your back office in the middle of the buying experience. Hopefully it's during your business hours. Hopefully they care enough to call you if it's not. They might just give up entirely or forget to even place the order. So, this is something significant that can affect adoption, and particularly for those creatures of habit that are used to doing things in a certain way. They're used to getting a deal that they're always accustomed to. And if that thing doesn't show up in your portal, why are they going to use it? You're just causing an extra step for them to have to call your back office or their sales rep. The other thing is inventory. A lot of people use our inventory feature at Handshake to kind of show product levels. So this is something that you should be doing, at least be showing what's in or out of stock to be able to better manage back orders, and again, provide comfort that the buying experience that your buyers are having is going to be kind of confirming and managing their expectations. So the last two here, product collateral. So, great online ordering portals, great B2B e-commerce portals allow you to host marketing collateral like product videos, lookbooks, lifestyle imagery, anything that you can have to support the buyer during the buying process that will help drive up orders. And the final thing here is just, on the seamless order confirmation and fulfillment. So just like what we talked about, like making sure that your buyer gets assurance that everything went as planned. They get that immediate email confirmation of the order. They have quick shipping. Just think about, kind of contrast this to your own experience in B2C and the kinds of expectations you have in terms of ship times and the types of quality messaging that's coming from the vendor. This is something we really expect, and you need to give your B2B buyers that same treatment. So this should all be pretty straightforward. So those are the 5 kind of elements of the buyer experience. I'd really encourage those of you who have a portal in place to think about these 5 elements and really think about how things are going. So do you feel like you have a really strong simple user experience that your buyers get right out of the first time they use the portal? How's your mobile experience? Is it native? Is it mobile optimized web? Can you host things like lookbooks and product collateral? Are you shipping out fast? And do you give your buyers access to things like inventory data? So just wanted to wrap this up by saying, again, the takeaway here is nailing these 5 is really the key to adoption. There are a lot of things you can do to try to get people in the door, and a lot of marketing trickery to try to get people to use your portal. You can give promotions, you can do whatever it takes, but really, if they get there and this user experience is subpar, all the marketing in the world is not going to make up for that. All right, so let's talk about launching the portal. We are going to go over some of the nitty-gritty tactics to drive adoption, and this starts with the launch. So obviously, a lot of you guys have launched a portal, or I know some of you have it in place but are saying that people don't know about it, so maybe you never did really that proper launch. So it's never too late to go back and do some of these things. Maybe you can pretend it's new if you have to. But so the first thing that's really important, and this is just a marketing best practice, and I hope this is probably review for some of you guys, but just want to drive this point home that creating a customer experience that's optimized for high adoption is really about knowing your buyer. So it's really important for those of you who have a manual process or a process in place right now online, to kind of get feedback about your current process from your buyers, understand what can be improved, and then factor this feedback into the way you talk to and message your buyers. So if you don't have a portal in place, you're lucky, because if you're getting feedback from your buyers that they need particular features or certain things, you can kind of vet vendors accordingly. But even if you don't, optimizing and tweaking your current solution, or making sure to kind of expose particular features or functionality that they might love based on their feedback, it's just really important to hear their voice. So you can do this a number of ways, whether it's phone or in person. It'd be great if it was some kind of unbiased effort in case people don't want to actually tell you the truth if you are, you have this long relationship with them. But I think we all know that customers will complain if they are given the chance. So I think people would love to hear, or would love to know that you guys really want to hear more about the buyer experience in general. So these are just some questions that you can ask in terms of the ordering process. And then on the B2B e-commerce side, a few things that are pretty important are about device access, internet access. particularly around on the internet access front. If you are giving your buyers a mobile app to order from you, or sorry, a mobile experience to order from you, and they don't have internet access, this is going to be a frustrating user experience. So just kind of knowing these things really helps drive the best possible implementation and the best possible marketing campaigns. So let's talk about your sales reps. So on the sales rep front, I think a lot of you guys will agree with me that the sales rep is an incredibly important part of the sales process still in manufacturing and distribution. We talk about this a lot at Handshake. Despite advances in technology, the sales rep still owns that customer relationship. They're incredibly important to your brand and have built a lot of trust and rapport with your buyers. So even though maybe when you first hear this, it might feel counterintuitive, your sales reps are your number one channel to actually promote adoption of your portal. So let's talk about that. We actually ran a survey last summer. Our new one's going to be coming out pretty soon. But in a survey of over 450 manufacturers and distributors, of the respondents with B2B e-commerce in place, 52% had their sales reps notify customers at store visits. So really use the rep as that marketing channel to talk about the portal. What's more, 30% of respondents claimed that the sales rep channel was actually the method most responsible for getting customers to use their portal. So if I remember correctly, I know this for sure, that the top two were kind of neck and neck, but sales reps came out on top in terms of driving the most usage. And the next thing was email. So of course, we'll be spending some time on email as well. So a few things here. So the most important thing to note about this relationship between the rep and your e-commerce strategy is that you really want them to be allies. Or sorry, the rep of the commerce portal is not a human to be an ally, but you want the rep to be an ally of your e-commerce strategy. So this means you have to do a little bit of kind of foresight and strategy behind this rollout that encourages that complementary relationship and something that's not adversarial. And typically where I see this going wrong is when companies make some mistakes around compensation. So on that note, it's really important that you commission your sales reps on all orders coming out of their respective customers. So whether that's through your portal or or in person. So I'm going to say this again. You must commission your sales reps on all orders, online or not. And just to drive this point home, if you are setting up a situation where your sales reps are only commissioned on their in-person orders, they are going to block your customers from using your portal. And it's going to make it very difficult for you to identify the ROI of your online ordering portal in general, because whether people are not using it because it's not great or your sales reps are sabotaging it, you just won't know. I've seen some pretty cool examples of this great alignment between reps and e-commerce with some of our customers. One of them that actually comes to mind is a company called Buff. Buff saw a lot of inactive customers coming back after they launched our B2B e-commerce solution. And one of the things that was really great from that experience was they follow that best practice of commissioning reps. And because of that, the reps were really excited and not threatened that these orders were coming through. So this kind of reactivated the relationship with the rep as well. And there was that excitement rather than that fear. So let's talk about email. I probably get the most questions on email, and I advise a lot of our customers on this front as well. So email is incredibly valuable in terms of a marketing tool. And this term drip email or drip campaign, I'm sure some of you guys are familiar with it, but this gets at like a series of emails. It's kind of dripping out of the faucet over time. It's meant to encourage the recipient to take action on something. So it usually involves a little kind of warming up someone on a topic area, establishing that rapport, and then springing the ask on them. So in terms of your portal launch, we recommend that you do a 4 email kind of a 4 email launch. And the first one is one that introduces that you'll be rolling out the portal. And by the way, we're going to be showing some examples of great emails on this front in a moment. So this first email, this introduction email, just kind of gives them an understanding of how and why they're going to want to use your portal. And you should be sending this far enough in advance, even a few months if possible, to make sure they don't feel blindsided when this new portal is launched. Next, ideally, you'll be sending an email that kind of reminds them that the portal launch is coming soon. And also, like, if you can, in this particular email, you should try to include the actual launch date if you trust yourself to actually pull through on it. Third is the actual official launch of your portal, where you invite your customers to place an order and actually put the access link in there. And then finally, every good email marketing drip campaign has a few follow-up emails. And one of the big realities of email marketing is that you're not always going to get people at the right time. So, and a lot of people try to think through send times to understand where they might get the biggest bang for their buck there. But at the end of the day, someone might be stepping away from their desk the moment you send the email. So you really never know, and that's why you have to follow up to catch people at the right time. Okay, so I'm going to show you a few emails and give you a few pro tips on the email marketing front. Some of you guys will know this stuff, some of you guys won't. The more I work with people on email, the more I realize some of the things I thought were more intuitive aren't necessarily, so I'm going to share them with you today. So this first email, this one that we introduce the portal, I just want to share a few things with you about this. So on the subject line front, it's really great to build hype on your portal. So the coming soon language is great. Another thing that I like to do is try to avoid jargon for a non-technical user. So while B2B e-commerce might be fairly commonplace for most of us, it's not necessarily the case that your buyer will respond to that type of terminology. So, kind of speaking the language that your buyer needs to hear. So in this case, online ordering. Setting a little enthusiasm with that exciting news in the exclamation point. Obviously, don't overuse those exclamation points because it gets old fast and doesn't look very professional. The mid-July reference here, again, you're kind of setting expectations to know that this is coming to make sure people aren't surprised. Sorry, I just realized this is a bit squished here. Sorry about that. So this section this is just kind of a formatting tactic, but huge blocks of huge paragraph blocks in these emails never really work. So setting up a bulleted list of the most important things you want to share with a bolded header is a really great tactic. In this scenario, I would really take what you know about your current buyer experience that you're trying to change and use these bullets as an opportunity to address the particular pain points that your buyers are facing. So, whether that's, one of the biggest things I probably hear is on the inventory front, that having access to inventory levels is one of the huge upgrades in the buyer experience. So making sure to message them to know that people are not going to be having this issue with back orders as they used to would be a great thing to highlight in the bullets there. Let's see, anything else here? This is just, the section right here is just a little bit of that value prop. So why does this matter and what is this going to do for them? Kind of elevating the quality of the service. Oh, sorry, that little yellow stuff's off, my bad. And then of course you need to make sure to put that contact info in case people have questions, because people will have questions when you change something like this. All right, so we're going to speed through the next ones without so much granularity, but just a few quick things. One great best practice is actually including the previous history of your email in that email thread. It drives me crazy when someone tries to say, oh, this is the 5th time I've emailed you, and I'm not really sure if this is a fit. And I'm like, I have no idea who you are, and I'm not looking through my emails to find you. So providing the context in the email thread is a really great tactic, and depending on what email service provider or ESP you use to send emails, this can be made more easy for you if they have that feature embedded. Otherwise, you can potentially fake it. So a few other things here. Definitely put the date in there if you can. We put that in the subject line. And, making sure to manage expectations that it's coming. So, okay, so the last two emails we're going to talk about are the launch and the follow-up. So on the launch and follow-up front, just a few things here. So it's always a great best practice to actually include the incentive in the subject line. I think everyone knows it, but people want a deal. And a lot of times that deal being up front right there on the subject line gets people to open the email. Urgency and kind of time boxing things here. So there should be like an explosion on that offer. So putting something in there that the discount only is going to be in effect till X date. And this is all like very standard promotional stuff that you guys are already doing. Just make sure to put it in that email. It's crazy the difference between leaving a detail out like that in terms of getting people to place orders. Like I used to work in businesses that were very promotional, and it would be amazing to me the difference between including a date where the promotion ends and not including that date. It was just an insane difference. So another thing here is you can kind of handhold your users to make sure they're not going to be stressed out having to go into the portal for the first time, particularly those buyers that might be a little bit behind, and provide them a one sheet. Or a little cheat sheet on how to use the portal. But again, if you're working with the right provider, you shouldn't really need to do that for them. But this is like a nice to have. If people just know it's there, it might feel more comfortable for them. So before we go on, I just want to say something quickly. A lot of people ask me about like, how do I send these emails and how do I do this at scale? I've seen a lot of interesting ways of doing email marketing in manufacturing and distribution. I'm really surprised at even how large companies sometimes don't really have a sophisticated email or marketing operation and are trying to do things like out of Outlook, for example. So the best way to do this type of email at scale is definitely with an ESP / what I just said, the email service provider. I'm sure a lot of you guys have that in place already. On that note, actually, Handshake just launched an integration with MailChimp. So for any of you guys who might be using MailChimp and want to learn a little bit more, just kind of the high level here is that the integration syncs over all of the customer and order data from Handshake right over to MailChimp. So that allows you guys to send really tailored emails. So for example, if my customer bought X product, send this email, send this upsell email showing related Y product, things like that. You can also do this to send, order confirmation emails and a bunch of other really helpful, admin type of emails. So if you want any information on this, whether you're a MailChimp user or not, feel free to type MailChimp in the question box and I'll have someone share some more with you. We also did a webinar on it recently. I can send you the recording for that. Cool. All right, let's go on to some other tactics because we are at 1:38 and I need to get going. All right, so your marketing website. So we went over the email front. So now we'll talk a little bit about website marketing. Obviously, your website is typically an important source of traffic to your portal. And just want to confirm here, we're not talking about the actual online ordering portal. We're talking about your company's actual website and using that as a kind of marketing landing page. As a landing page to then drive traffic to, it's not the right use of landing page, my bad, I'm gonna confuse everyone. It's really a place where you can push them to your actual portal. So as you guys know, if you're doing B2B and B2C, so you have that retail offering on your website, it's probably the case that your site is optimized for your retail audience, which is the common business model here. So it is important, though, that you do provide some kind of call out to your wholesale offering. So you see here we have one of our customers called Sugar Paper. They're a stationery brand. They have like a little call out here that says interested in wholesale. And so what you should be doing here is, outside of providing this kind of call out on your website, and you can do this more dramatically or more subtly based on your business, but this should take your buyers to a login page or at least a place that you can collect information on a potential new buyer. So you can see here, and we see this all the time. You typically in this world, people don't want buyers buying from them right away without the credit check or being vetted to see if they're a serious buyer. So in this case with Sugar Paper, they have a form that allows the buyer to request access to the portal. It also allows people to log in who have the login. So this is a great best practice and a great way to find new buyers. But if you don't have a way to get here, this page is not going to be a lucrative website for you or webpage for you. Here's just another example of another one of our customers that has in the top nav has this kind of wholesale call out. So let's talk about flyers. You guys know that you're still, in manufacturing and distribution, we are, this is an industry that's manufacturing physical products and sends things in the mail. So you guys have a special opportunity to include, cardstock mailers. We see people doing that all the time, including a little mailer that identifies that they have an online portal now, and it's, encouraging people to place the reorders on the portal. This is a flyer we did for one of our customers. It doesn't really have a gray box on the top, but I was being classy and using my amazing PowerPoint skills to block out the logo. But anyway, basically this flyer was used at one of our customers' trade shows. So kind of passed out to the buyers to launch. They use our customer mobile ordering app. So they were launching that at the show, and this is a flyer that kind of gave some awareness on that front. So customer communications, this is another way to do this. Just anyone who's customer facing should be making noise about your portal. So whether that's, in this example, someone forwarded me an email a while back that was showing that the out of office had have you seen our new online ordering portal? So this is something you should keep in mind. Put it in the signatures of the people who are talking to your customers. I wanted to just do a quick case study or just a few details on one of our customers that really had an amazing adoption strategy, and there's a lot of tactical elements here that we can learn from. So Pet Food Experts is a pet food and pet products distributor, one of the biggest in the US, and they use our customer ordering app. So it was really important for them to provide mobile ordering for their buyers, given the fact that most of their buyers are placing orders shelf side. So I just want to go back to this point earlier in the webinar where we talked about knowing your customers. So Pet Food Experts, they already knew a lot about their customers. These were store owners who really were very passionate about pets and pet products and pet nutrition, but they weren't exactly as concerned with business efficiency or technology. So one thing that Pet Food Experts did, which was a really great idea, was they surveyed their entire customer base before launching online ordering on mobile, and to just get a sense for their level of comfort with technology. And the survey came back saying that their customers, most of the customers, were actually not comfortable with technology at all. So with this kind of intel, they were able to, they kind of knew off the bat that they were going to have to do something very significant in terms of hand-holding for adoption. And so they worked with our customer success team to put together a really well thought out adoption plan. Some of the things that I'd like to highlight in this list, these are all the things that they did, but a few interesting ones were they had an ambassador program where they trained their kind of most tech-savvy reps to give special attention to customers that might need it. So in the customer visit, they just had those reps walk through how to use the app right there. And they did that kind of regionally, so everyone had a point person. They did a lot of email marketing campaigns, like here's one right here, including testimonials. They did a great job on the testimonial front. And it was great to, for customers to see people like them that were able to use the technology without any problem. They did a great customer testimonial video as well. They also did something cool that was like a raffle. So they actually offered a raffle to their buyers that the more business that people placed via the Handshake mobile app, the more tickets they were able to enter in a raffle, which then gave them a prize of $10,000 in credits. So it was a really great way to drive more adoption. And just on the results front, they had some really strong results. 10% of their overall revenue is now coming through mobile. And the other thing that's really exciting here is there's a segment of power users that are using Handshake to place 80 to 90% of all their orders. So, it goes to show that a strong adoption plan and really thinking through these details, and luckily you guys can learn from these details and do some similar things, it really, really helped to drive adoption. All right, so in the last few minutes we have here, we're going to talk about driving ongoing usage. So a few things. It's really important to keep this information accurate. I said this before, but one of the things that's going to get people out of your portal and back into this manual call and email situation is going to be if information is not accurate in the portal itself. So I've mentioned already pricing. Another thing that's really important here, and we obviously talked about inventory and back orders, but promotions and business rules. So a lot of people come to Handshake because we allow them to set customer-specific business rules or criteria or promotions. So this is something that basically allows you to mirror any promotions that your reps are able to give your customers in the field. You should also be able to mimic those exact things online. So if you can't, you're setting up channel conflict where your buyer has to decide where they want to buy, and guess what? They're going to buy where they get the better deal. So you really need to have these kinds of things loaded up into your portal, and they need to be accurate. So the rest of that should be pretty straightforward. Make sure to keep this info updated. Here's some engagement email ideas. So again, power of email marketing to continue to drive usage. It's really amazing. These are all great excuses to touch base with your buyers, whether that's launching your new season, letting people know that inventory is back in stock, sending reorder reminders. A lot of these again can be used, or a lot of these can be sent automated via something like a MailChimp. So again, you should be using your ESP to automate this type of email activity because you can get a lot of juice from it in terms of adoption. Few last things here. So another thing, we have something in Handshake called the buyer review feature, which allows you to essentially kind of draft up an order for your buyer and email it along for them to take action. So this is something that can make things very easy for your buyer, who, especially one who might be a little nervous about using a portal for the first time. All they need to do is log in, check out the order that's been created for them, and buy. And then plugins. So one of the important things about, or not important, sorry, one of the best things about using a e-commerce solution that allows you to pull in other best-in-class software is that really can strengthen the buyer experience. So for example, it's really great to bring in like a chat widget, or there's a lot of customer support Zendesk style widgets that you can bring in, OLARC chat, just to make sure that if your buyer has any questions mid-buy, that they can kind of chat to any of your sales reps or your back office team with questions. So these are there's also things on the Google Analytics side. You just kind of want to strengthen your buyer experience and your back office experience with these tools. Final thing here is just, make sure your reps are continually involved in being big advocates of the portal. Make sure to incentivize them to do that. You can do that in a number of ways, but I see a lot of people kind of setting up a little booth at the trade shows that they're doing to kind of train people right on the spot to use the portal. Or maybe they'll place an order at the trade show and say, take a look at our new portal. This is a great way to place your reorder. I'll show you how to use it for 5 minutes right now. Okay, so next steps. We're going to get into questions in just a minute. So if you don't have B2B e-commerce in place, you're kind of lucky in some ways because you have the ability to do this right the first time. So make sure you know your buyer. You need to implement a solution that actually accommodates the needs of your buyer, and make sure that you're really optimizing around those gold standard buyer experience elements that we talked about. launch the portal, given all of those strategies we talked about today and those learnings from the PFX case study, continue to drive ongoing usage with email marketing, and make sure to continue to review and audit your implementation for changes. For those of you guys who do have something in place, there are some similar things here, but the first thing is really going to be an audit of your current situation. Think about that gold standard user experience, and continue to drive ongoing usage with some of the tactics we mentioned today. I think also the biggest takeaway here is really think very critically about your mobile experience. We're seeing more and more people focus heavily on the mobile buying experience. In fact, where everyone was kind of more going towards web initially, we're seeing a lot of people actually jumping directly to providing mobile ordering to their buyers without even caring about web anymore, because they know how critical of a workflow this is these days. So it's always been interesting. All right, before we get to Q&A, a lot of people ask me what Handshake's all about when I do these webinars, and I just wanted to quickly show you. We have a platform for manufacturers and distributors. We have e-commerce solutions that are very relevant to what we talked about today. We have Handshake Direct Mobile is our mobile app that allows customers to place orders. And we have our web portal, Handshake Direct Online. This other technology we have on the left-hand side is a field sales app. So basically, it's a mobile order writing app for sales reps in the field, and it operates very similarly to our app for the customers. So this is all native mobile technology that works offline. All of this order data is aggregated into a common backend where your back office team would be kind of receiving, reviewing, modifying orders and sending them to fulfillment. And that data is then synced back to your ERP or your accounting software. So maybe you're a QuickBooks user. So just wanted to make sure you guys knew about Handshake. Of course, if you want to see Handshake in a little bit more detail, I will be sending along anyone who's interested. Just type in demo. Be happy to show you our e-commerce solutions and or talk you through a little bit about how to drive more adoption with your current solution. Feel free to type demo in there. And typically we can provide some kind of offer for participants on the webinar, particularly those who bundle or have the sales rep need. So again, feel free to type demo in now. All right, so I'm gonna start looking through, lots of questions. Okay, we're definitely not gonna have time for all of them, but I will try my best. All right, great, seeing some demos. If anyone else wants one, feel free to type that in. All right, so let's do some questions. Interesting. Okay, Darren's asking, how do third-party agents / reps work with this B2B e-commerce portal strategy? I think you're asking in terms of what we talked about today about aligning reps with your e-commerce strategy. So I don't think it's any different unless I'm not understanding your question. It's still the case that you should be thinking about commissioning reps either way. So maybe you can follow up with me. I'll provide my contact info at the end and we can talk at more length on this question. But it's still the case that, even customers that you're servicing with an independent rep still should have the option to either work through the rep or order online, and those reps should be on board and commissioned accordingly. I know it might feel a little stranger for you because these people are not internal employees, but it's going to hurt adoption of your portal if you don't do it. I have a question on specific commission structures being the same for online sales versus standard methods. So this is a very personal question depending on your business, but I think it's pretty obvious that if you're setting up commission structures that are not the same, everyone is going to go for whatever gets them the most commission. So you're setting up that channel conflict again. So I would say the commission structure being equivalent is really important. Someone's asking about tools to assess needs and requirements for online ordering. Great. I'm so glad you're thinking about this seriously. Do we have an example of a great email survey for that? And this person's saying they can use SurveyMonkey. So, I should say this, actually, I didn't share this. I'm going to send you guys a guide that we did on this topic where we provide some questions that you can ask. I would also be happy to look over the questions that you are going to be putting in your survey to give you some feedback. I'd be happy to do that as a thank you for attending the webinar today. So, I would say the best practices there, don't go overboard, try to keep it short. Try to mix up a little bit of multiple choice with a little bit of free form, or jump on the phone if you can, if people are interested in giving you more feedback. Your pet slide doesn't really have to do with distribution. This is retail based. How does this apply to me as a distributor? Thanks, Robin. So sorry for any confusion. Actually, they are a distributor. So everything we were talking about in that slide is them as a distributor working with their retail customers to place orders online. So like that raffle that we're talking about, the raffle was so that their retail customers, the more that the retail customer placed orders through the Handshake mobile app, they would then be given, the person who won the raffle was given $10,000 to place an order for their store. So that is the distribution model. Let me know if I'm misunderstanding your question. I have B2C e-commerce. I want to add B2B. Should this be done on a separate site or simply adjust prices to wholesale prices once a customer logs in? It's a good question. We get a lot of people who are trying to force B2C solutions to work for B2B, and it's not a great idea. The B2B buying workflow is very unique. It's about volume-based ordering. It's about, it's really not about a buy now, like glossy kind of spammy B2C experience. It's a very different workflow. And a lot of people come to Handshake because we are B2B focused. We only do B2B buying. So everything about our software is about accommodating the workflow and optimizing for wholesale ordering. So we definitely don't advise trying to force those two things into one. You should for sure separate them. Let's see here. Okay, what happens if the customers like that the sales rep suggests the order for them after checking the site or display inside the store? Louisa, I think what you're saying is, this is a great question, but it's also why it's great to have tech for your sales reps and your customers that are consolidated. So this shouldn't be a thing. This is great. If your customers have an experience with your sales rep can then draft up an order for them either in a rep tool like we have, like an app that we have, or they can even, they can draft it up in your e-commerce portal and send it to them using that buyer review feature we talked about. There's a lot of things that are easy to achieve on that front. So again, your sales rep channel and your e-commerce channel should really go hand in hand, and this is something that's very easy to accommodate. Thanks for the nice feedback, Matt. Thanks for the webinar, very informational. Would you be able to send a link to this webinar? Yep, I'll be sending that along to you guys. You'll be receiving a copy of the recording and a link to the slides soon. Let's see if there's anything else. Sorry guys, there's a lot of questions. I'm trying my best to get to them, but we're 1 more minute away. How important is it to have an online ordering functionality fully integrated to the company website? Like for example, as a page on your website versus a separate site? It's a good question. For the most part, it's not super critical, but for SEO reasons, it's probably the case that you should have it on the same domain. But there's a lot of commentary on whether this idea of kind of this like microsite concept is the right approach. But I think this shouldn't be a deal breaker for you. So if it's the case that you can't, for whatever reason, host your site on your domain and it's a different site, it's not a huge issue. But again, there are some SEO implications of that if you're trying to drive traffic organically to your site. And that's a very different topic that's not really relevant for today. Cool. So here's my info. It was great to have all of you guys here today. We'll be following up with that info in terms of the recording and the deck. Last chance for anyone who wants to see a little bit of Handshake in action, please type in demo. Whether that's for our solution on web, mobile, or for the reps. The other thing to note, a lot of people ask me how Handshake is different, and before we go, for those of you who are interested, the few reasons people come to Handshake more than anything else is that, again, we're purely focused on B2B without that noise of the B2C offering, and our mobile technology is really superior in this market. So most of our competitive space has not embraced native mobile technology because it's just a big undertaking to develop something like this. And we're a mobile-first technology. We were born from a mobile app. So whereas a lot of people are trying to scramble and get their mobile offering together, we've had a very strong mobile offering from the very beginning. So people who really care about mobile, which is increasingly everyone, a lot of them come to Handshake for that app-like experience that can work offline. So I would say those are probably the biggest reasons people come to us. And hopefully that helps you guys in case you're interested. Thanks again for being here. Feel free to email me if you have any questions or anything that comes up. You can also give us a call, and hope you have a great day wherever you are. Take care.